The message had arrived in the dead of night, a single handwritten envelope addressed in a spidery scrawl.
They are not what they seem. The Warren holds the truth.
It was signed simply, "A Friend." The note was pinned to a faded photograph, a picture of a desolate cliff face shrouded in mist. Amelia's heart pounded. This was no ordinary message. This was a call to unravel a mystery. Amelia had dedicated her life to studying ancient cultures and forgotten lore. The note, with its cryptic warning, reawakened a dormant sense of adventure within her. The cliffs in the picture seemed vaguely familiar, like a half-remembered dream. After days of poring over maps and old research notes, she found a match: the Ebon Cliffs on the edge of the North Sea, a place steeped in local legends of strange creatures and disappearances.
Driven by a thirst for knowledge and a growing sense of unease, I packed my bags. I was determined to uncover the truth behind the message and the secrets hidden within the Warren.
The journey north was long and arduous. Amelia found herself haunted by the image of the cliffs, their jagged peaks seeming to claw at the sky. The cryptic message echoed in her mind, fueling her curiosity and her apprehension in equal measure. As she drew closer to her destination, a sense of foreboding settled upon her. The air grew colder, damper, and the once familiar landscape took on a sinister aspect. She started to question her sanity. Was she chasing shadows or something far more sinister? The Ebon Cliffs loomed before Amelia, a wall of black rock against the leaden sky. A thick, unnatural mist clung to the cliffs, swallowing sound and muffling the world in an eerie silence. The air hung heavy with the smell of salt and something else, something ancient and vaguely unsettling.
Armed with my notebook, flashlight, and a growing sense of trepidation, I began my ascent.
The path was treacherous, little more than a goat track, clinging precariously to the cliff face. The wind howled around her, whipping her hair across her face, carrying whispers that seemed to emanate from the mist itself. Whispers that spoke of watchful eyes and things best left undisturbed.
Despite my growing fear, I pushed onward. An inexplicable force, a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity, compelled me toward the heart of the mystery.
As she climbed, the mist grew denser, swirling around her like phantom limbs. It played tricks on her senses, distorting shapes and sounds, amplifying her fear. She thought she saw fleeting shapes in the mist, moving just beyond the reach of her flashlight's beam. Were they real, or figments of her increasingly agitated imagination? The line between reality and nightmare began to blur. The whispers in the wind intensified, seeming to taunt her, urging her to turn back while she still could. Hours later, exhausted and thoroughly unnerved, Amelia stumbled upon a break in the cliffs. A natural archway of crumbling stone, shrouded in an unnatural gloom, stood before her. This, she sensed, was the entrance to the Warren. The name itself seemed to slither off her tongue, leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. This was no ordinary burrow. This was a place of ancient secrets and unspeakable horrors.
Hesitantly, I stepped through the archway, and the world outside seemed to vanish. The air grew stagnant, heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. The path beneath my feet was no longer stone but bare earth, riddled with a network of tunnels that disappeared into the darkness.
Amelia's flashlight cut a feeble swathe through the oppressive gloom, revealing glimpses of twisted roots and what looked disturbingly like bones. The silence within the Warren was unnerving. Gone were the whispers of the wind and the cries of seabirds. Here, there was only a suffocating stillness, broken only by the sound of Amelia's own ragged breathing and the frantic thumping of her heart.
I felt a primal fear grip me, a fear that spoke of being hunted, of being watched by something unseen. The Warren was alive. I could feel it in the cold, damp earth beneath my feet, in the oppressive air that pressed down on me.
Deeper and deeper, Amelia ventured, the tunnels twisting and turning in a dizzying maze. The air grew heavy with a cloying sweetness that made her head spin. She stumbled upon chambers filled with strange phosphorescent fungi, their eerie glow casting grotesque shadows that danced along the tunnel walls. It was like she had entered a subterranean world untouched by time and sunlight.
Then I saw them, eyes, glowing, malevolent eyes peering at me from the darkness, hundreds of them.
As her flashlight beam swept across the tunnel walls, she saw they belonged to rabbits. But these were not ordinary rabbits. These were monstrous, their bodies grotesquely large, their fur matted and thick, their eyes burning with an unnatural intelligence.
The rabbits made no move to attack. They simply watched me, their glowing eyes following my every move. My blood ran cold. The note had warned me. They are not what they seem.
She had stumbled upon something far older, far more sinister than she could ever have imagined. The warren was not just a burrow, it was a lair, a hive. The tunnels opened into a vast cavern, the air thick with the smell of decay and something else, something akin to rotting meat. In the center of the cavern, upon a throne of bones, sat the source of the stench. A rabbit of impossible size, its fur matted with blood and filth, its eyes burning with a cold, malevolent intelligence. This was the heart of the nightmare, the Rabbit King.
Terror threatened to overwhelm Amelia, but she stood her ground. She had come too far to turn back now. She had to understand. She had to know the truth behind the warren and the creatures that inhabited it. Who are you? Amelia's voice echoed strangely in the cavern.
The Rabbit King turned its grotesque head towards her, its eyes boring into hers.
"We are the Warren," a voice rasped in her mind, cold and alien. "We are one."
Amelia stumbled back aghast. The voice was not coming from the creature before her, but from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was then that the horrifying truth dawned on her. The warren was not just a hive. It was a single entity, a monstrous consciousness formed from the minds of countless rabbits, and she had stumbled right into its heart. The Rabbit King, Amelia realized with a growing sense of horror, was not a leader in the traditional sense, but a conduit, a puppet through which the collective will of the warren could be expressed. It was a horrifying, grotesque mockery of a monarch, its every move dictated by the hive mind that controlled it.
Why am I here? Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper. She could feel the warren's consciousness pressing in on her, probing her thoughts, her fears. It was a sensation like being submerged in ice-cold water, a violation of her very being.
"You are here to witness," the voice echoed in her mind, cold and devoid of emotion, "to understand."
Images flashed through Amelia's mind, visions of the warren's long history, of ancient rituals and sacrifices, of a darkness that stretched back through the ages. The warren was not just a hive mind, it was a parasite. It fed on the life force of other creatures, twisting and contorting them into monstrous mockeries of their former selves. The rabbits were just the latest victims. The true horror lay in the realization that Amelia was not just a witness, she was the warren's next target. Panic surged through Amelia, a primal instinct to flee from the unspeakable horror that surrounded her. She had to escape, to warn the world about the nightmare lurking beneath the cliffs.
"You cannot escape," the warren's voice echoed in her mind. "You are already ours."
Amelia stumbled back, her hand frantically searching for her flashlight. The beam danced wildly, momentarily illuminating the grotesque forms of the rabbits that surrounded her. Their eyes glowed with an unholy hunger.
Summoning every ounce of courage, Amelia turned and ran. She didn't look back. She could feel the warren's anger, its frustration, but she couldn't let that stop her. She had to escape. She had to warn the world.
Behind her, she heard the scrabble of claws on stone, the chittering of countless teeth. The warren was awake, and it was hungry. The tunnels seemed to stretch on forever, a twisting, turning labyrinth designed to trap and confuse. But Amelia was no longer the timid scholar she had been when she first entered the warren. She was a survivor, driven by a primal need to escape the clutches of the nightmare that pursued her. She could feel the warren's consciousness reaching for her, trying to ensnare her in its web of terror, but she fought back with everything she had.
Ahead, I saw a glimmer of light.
Hope surged through her, urging her onward. She burst through the tunnel entrance and into the cold night air, gasping for breath. But her relief was short-lived. She had emerged onto a narrow ledge, the ground falling away sharply before her, and blocking her only way back, a sea of glowing eyes awaited.
The rabbits had me trapped.
They pressed forward, their numbers seemingly endless, their eyes burning with an unholy light. The Rabbit King emerged from the tunnel, its grotesque form silhouetted against the moonlight. It made no move to attack. It simply watched her, its cold, calculating gaze filled with a chilling finality.
"There is no escape. You are one of us now."
Amelia closed her eyes, despair washing over her. She had failed. The warren had won. She could feel its tendrils reaching for her, seeking to ensnare her mind, to consume her essence. She was going to be another puppet, another drone in its hive mind.
I looked from the cliff face to the sea of glowing eyes behind me. Both meant certain death.
She felt a strange sense of calm descend upon her. She had lost, but she would not give the Warren the satisfaction of her fear. She would face her fate with dignity. Taking a deep breath of the salty air, Amelia turned her back on the rabbits and faced the abyss. The sea roared far below, its surface reflecting the eerie glow of the moon. It was a terrifying sight, yet strangely beautiful. In that moment, Amelia found a strange sense of peace. She was about to become a part of something vast, ancient, and terrible.
The Warren's presence pressed against my mind, a cold, alien consciousness seeking to assert its dominance.
Amelia closed her eyes, but instead of resisting, she opened her mind to the Warren. If she was going to die, she would die on her own terms. She would meet the Warren head-on, her consciousness a beacon against the encroaching darkness.
I felt a coldness seep into me, a feeling of countless minds pressing against my own. Images flashed before my eyes, eons of darkness, of hunger, of a vast, uncaring consciousness stretching back to the dawn of time.
The Warren was ancient, its origins lost to the mists of time. It had existed long before humanity, and it would exist long after. For a moment, Amelia felt a sense of awe at the sheer scale of the consciousness that surrounded her. The Warren was not evil, not in the traditional sense. It was simply a force of nature, driven by an insatiable hunger, and she was about to become a part of it.
The coldness intensified, threatening to overwhelm me. I felt myself slipping away, my sense of self dissolving into the vastness of the Warren's mind. I was no longer Amelia Evans, anthropologist. I was simply a part of the Warren, a single consciousness among countless others.
Then, just as suddenly as it began, it was over. The coldness receded, leaving a chilling emptiness in its wake. Amelia opened her eyes, her vision blurry, her body trembling. She was still alive. She looked back, but the ledge was empty. The rabbits were gone. The Warren had retreated.
I collapsed to my knees, relief washing over me in waves. I had stared into the abyss, and somehow I had survived. But the experience had changed me. I was no longer the same woman who had first ventured into the Warren. I had seen too much, experienced too much.
As the first rays of dawn illuminated the cliffs, Amelia slowly made her way back down the path. She didn't look back. She knew that the Warren was still out there, watching, waiting, and she knew that she would never truly escape the horror she had witnessed. The silence of the cliffs was no longer peaceful. It was the silence of a predator stalking its prey, biding its time. The Warren was still out there, and it would never forget her.